welcome to another episode of More Bang for Her Buck, a show that's proudly produced by Brown on the Outside. This is a show that aims to have more women talking money because, like we just said before we hit roll, too often the response about money is, I hate numbers. I mean, I'm really good at making money. I can make the money, but I just don't want to deal with it. And that's the story with so many women. But fortunately or unfortunately, so much of our empowerment and our independence and our freedom is tied in with issues about money. So if we don't talk about it, we're not going to be able to fix it. So here's an effort to start conversations about money so that more women can leave unsafe places, unsafe marriages, unsafe relationships, unsafe workplaces, and choose what's better for them because they can literally afford to. On the show today, I've got two incredible women and two delightful people that I can't wait to start this conversation actually. Raji runs a handle that goes by the name of Finance with Raji. So you studied in IHS, you're a Dubai kid.
Yes.
You moved to the UK to do your master's and you started this as a side hustle, and now you give investment advice to people and you run courses that help people like me who don't know a lot about numbers become investors in 6 weeks. And it's been running for 3 years now?
Yes, exactly. Yeah? A little bit over 3 years now.
Amazing. What I really like about your handle is the way that you take household incomes and then you break it down. So, for example, I remember watching one of your little snippets where you said, okay, so the family is making 15,000 dirhams and this is what they do with their rent and this is how much they save and this is how much they invest and so on. Naomi D'Souza has been someone who's been on my timeline for a few years now. She's an influencer. She's a famous face in celebrity in Dubai. But you, you had a tech job for a while and influencing was your side hustle, and now you've been running XN Digitize, which is your digital marketing agency, for a year and a half.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's gone from side hustle to main gig.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, tech was about 5 years. Before that, I was an engineer.
Yeah.
So this influencing and content creation was always a side hustle, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And then now, I've combined both. I've combined both and created XN Digitize.
One of the things that Naomi did, especially during the pandemic, that really caught my attention and stayed with me 3 years later, I still think about it, was helping people make their CVs, which was an eye-opening experience for me because I realized that I've actually never made a CV. And I am very nervous about making one. At the age of 37, I still don't have a CV.
So, sign up, we'll make
we'll make one. But I want to start. I know, right? I want to start this interview by asking you to talk to us about a money mistake that you made that really made you feel like, what? I'm like really smart. I'm really good at so much other stuff, but how could I have made a mistake this dumb with money? I know I have one, but I'll start with you, Raji. What's yours?
My biggest mistake, I would say, was trusting a relative, so a family friend relative, and handing over my money because I was told that if I were to invest into that investment cum insurance policy, I would be able to double my money in these many years. And I thought that was a great scheme. I thought that was amazing. And it's only after I educated myself, I started looking into the nitty-gritty details of it, I realized, well, it's just the way it's marketed that it sounds like a great product. But if you actually break it down and look at what the returns would be year on year, it was nothing. It was peanuts.
Negligible.
Yeah. And I then have gone and realized that there's so many people who actually fall for it, just like how I did. Well, there's so many.
Yeah.
Most of us would actually have stories to talk about this where they've gone and invested in, or just be part of an investment cum insurance policies, and they just thought it's a great product,
and then it really wasn't. But I think one of the big problems is that when I go into a bank or when I speak to a financial advisor, and this has happened time and time again, I just leave that conversation feeling so dumb. And I hate it. I hate it because I feel like I'm a really smart person, Like I can walk into pretty much any room and walk out feeling really smart, except when I walk into a bank sometimes and I'm like, oh man, I'm so bad at this. Have you had a mistake that you've made where you've left the conversation going, wow, how could I have made that money mistake?
I mean, all the time, right? I think especially when you start a business, it's all about numbers, even the basic thing like licensing, and now it's tax, right? Once you get tax registered, it's like, what do you do? And like, I always find myself asking stupid questions to my mom. And I think if she wasn't there, I really don't think how I would manage the business. Even the stuff that you're saying now, it flew above my head. Like, what are you saying?
But by the way, my mom manages a lot of my money too. So I know how you feel when you say that. I'm so glad my mom's around, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to making CVs, for example, that's a great example of a time when women kind of go into the workplace and they negotiate for a lot less than they should be. Do you see that a lot with the women you help with making their CVs?
It's actually quite sad because I think with women it's very different. There are two things that come with negotiations. One is obviously fear, and the other thing is the confidence. Now, if you don't have the fear, you won't have the confidence, right? And vice versa. I think with women, especially with Indians, at least from what I've seen. So I'm not being racist. It's just based on experience. So many women, because of stuff that's brought down from generations to generations. Because women never knew their worth, and then they get their kids, and then they're taught that they're supposed to take care of their children, and then they basically take kind of like a sabbatical, right? Maternity leave that basically never ends. And then they come back and they want to do their CV. So I find it so difficult to help them promote themselves because they don't want to do that. Even when I tell them something as basic as, hey, you need to set up your LinkedIn, they don't want to do that, which is why I came up with that LinkedIn course as well. That's kind of like from the CV. After you do your CV, it's creating your LinkedIn profile. But in terms of a story, if I could say, there was one such woman. She, after COVID, she went through a divorce, and she was pregnant. So while she was experiencing COVID, her child as well got it. And then after she gave birth, they both had to be in an ICU, and the kid had to be in an NICU. And then the husband left her. So obviously she was left with like no money, and it was very difficult for her. So I think having that financial security is so important. And the thing is, she refused to promote herself on LinkedIn because she didn't know how to do that. Because I think for so many years you are told that women can't do XYZ, and then it moves on from generations to generations.
I'll add
moms
to
moms to moms to moms.
I'll add to that, Naomi. I mean, even when I get on LinkedIn, I feel like, LinkedIn's a place where you kind of boast about you boast about yourself. You say like, I've achieved so much at work. But women are taught to say, no, I let my work speak for itself. I don't want to boast about, other people should say how good Malvika is at her job. Malvika shouldn't say she's so good at
There's
her
so
job.
many things like that.
Right?
And I've told them, if you don't market yourself, no one else will. So even the stuff that I do, people may perceive it as, oh, she's quite braggy, she boasts a lot, but they won't say that to a man.
No.
Exactly.
They say that the man is
Very
confident,
true,
right?
yeah.
But as
Very
soon as
true.
you say something, it's like, no. So I have to actually give these examples to these women, and then they'll be like, okay, yeah. But then they'll be like, if I do this, my mother-in-law or my mother will say something. So I've heard that as well. And I'm like, you need to fend for yourself, because if your husband leaves you, and your parents will obviously grow old, right? Who's going to fend for themselves? You. So
Yep. I think the big takeaway for me is for us not to be scared of looking at those numbers and actually sitting down and saying, okay, how do we make our money work for us? And I want to come back and talk about how you kind of break down these these household incomes, and what percentage should we be saving, what percentage should we be investing, and how can we like not feel dumb about this whole money conversation. Okay, we'll come back and talk about that. Welcome back to More Bang for Her Buck. I'm with Naomi and Raji, and we're talking money. I found a post that you did, Raji, really interesting, about how to attend a Desi wedding without busting the bank. Okay, and I think that that post really hit me, because it's such a Dubai thing also, right? Like when Diwali comes around, for example, you want to buy the nicest sari or the nicest lehenga, you want to get your nails done, you want to get your hair done, you want to look great. It's also part of the influencer life where you've got to look a certain way and always wear something new.
And I think I feel a pressure now, especially because now I am on social media.
Yeah.
I don't think I was that person, but now, particularly because I'm in social media, like, I'm like, oh my God, am I like re-wearing my clothes too much? And,
Yeah.
particularly because I speak about money, I think sometimes I'm like, oh, people might think I'm too stingy, you know, because, especially because I speak about money as well. They're like, oh, she's just being too stingy, not, you know.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, for all the years that I was on radio and attending events every weekend, I mean, I would rake up a bill at the salon of easily 2,500 to 3,000 dirhams a month, right? This is just getting your hair done and your nails done and, you know, your makeup artists and this
Nails
and that.
are expensive.
They are. They really are. But I want to talk about some of the big mistakes we end up making in our 20s and early 30s with money. Can you tell me your 3 big mistakes that you see people making?
Especially when they start, right?
Yeah.
I think it's firstly just trying to live beyond their means, especially when you get this job, now you're like, oh my God, I've got all that money, and just going and buying things that you actually don't need. It might even be, oh, my friends are buying an iPhone 15 or, you know, all of these, and then just trying to actually keep up with that. And I see that so often. And I think even when I was in my 20s, I saw my friends doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I back of their head, it's like, oh, you're too young, so why care about money?
Yeah. So don't live beyond your means.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but how do you know what your means are? Like how do you kind of set that limit for yourself? What exercise do you do with your clients that help them understand that, no, I'm sorry, if you're making say 8K a month, you should not be spending more than X amount on this?
It's as simple as that. The first thing is, if you're making only 8K a month, and if you're spending more than 8K a month, where you have to actually then depend on a credit card to actually, you know, depend on that and just go for the rest of the month, then that's like biggest red flag. That is definitely you spending beyond your means.
Yeah.
And second, not having savings at all, not being able to save at all, zero savings. That again is a big red flag, because in my view, even if you make 5K or even if you make 50K, you should be able to save at least 50 dirhams.
Yeah.
You know, depending on whatever you're saving, you know, whatever your income is, you should be able to save. And if you're not able to do that, then definitely you are clearly living beyond your means. You can come up with all sorts of excuses, but you are, my friend, living beyond your means.
Yeah. Yeah. But another interesting post of yours talked about how, and I have this problem as well, right? Where for me, savings is like put money in the bank and let it be there, because it feels so nice to open your bank account and see a big number.
Yeah.
But you don't realize that letting money sit in your bank account is actually allowing it to depreciate. Do you find that as a struggle to explain to your clients as well?
Yes,
is it a big mindset problem?
Definitely, because I think it's the fact that you can, like, just like how you said, you know, you can see that money sitting in there, and that just gives you that peace of mind. Okay, it's somewhere safe. And so many people actually have told me, like, there was this girl who had over 100,000 dirhams just sitting in the bank, and she's like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. She's a very good saver, but she's like, I don't want to lose my money. I just don't want to lose. I rather not make more money at all, but I don't want to lose my money. And I had to actually explain it to her. Well, if you're putting that in the bank, you are losing money. You know, if you could, for, you know, even if it's like 10,000 or 100 dirhams, if you could buy, you know, whatever this year, maybe say, I don't know, for 100 dirhams, if you can buy, let's say 10, 10 bananas or something, you know, just picking things up. Next year, you might maybe only be able to buy like maybe 9 of them.
Yeah.
And that is how you're losing your money.
Yeah.
But many of us don't realize that. It's very simple as, like, I've always heard my grandmother say, oh, but when I was young, I could buy something like tomatoes for like, I don't know, 90 pence or something like that, right? But whereas now it's so expensive.
Yeah.
That is how you're losing your money.
Yeah.
But because we can't, you know, it's not tangible enough.
And actually, that's a big problem with women, right? Because a lot of times, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom, for example, you're given an allowance, what ends up happening is that you kind of collect it, you keep it in a little piggy bank. You know, there are so many stories of women keeping, you know, stacks of cash in their jewelry box, on the Artica dabba or whatever.
Yes.
Right? And then you realize that it's actually not making you anything. Yeah. But I want to move on to you, Naomi. Do you feel like you've ever fallen into that Dubai trap where you felt like, oh God, I've got to buy the next bag and the next car and the next house? Because the influencer life is like that. Now you feel like you've got to go for the brunch and you've got to have your nails done and you've got to, you know. Yeah. Do you feel that?
First of all, it felt like you're talking about me. I was like, did I speak to Raji? Because I just sold my house. please. And my mom is like, no, give me the money. You have to reinvest it. I'm like, no, I don't want to. Let it just sit there. But I think it's very different for this glamorous influencer industry.
Yeah.
The thing is, because sometimes you're forced to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when there's a photo shoot and your nails look ugly, you don't want it to, right? So you have to get your nails done. And when you go on a red carpet, there were many a times where I ignored it and I was like, oh, I don't want to fall into that trap. Let me not do my hair. And I looked shit, right? So it's kind of like, depending on the industry you are in, I feel you are forced to do certain things. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to buy the best designer bags, because now there's something called this quiet luxury, silent luxury.
Quiet luxury.
Yeah, quiet luxury.
Where you rent it.
No, like quiet luxury is basically where it's kind of like the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates, where it looks like they're wearing a no brand kind of t-shirt, but if you actually look at the cost, it's like $500. You know, so the cost is expensive, but there are no brands as such. So I feel
I learned something new today.
Yes. So I feel you do what you're supposed to do, depending on what your industry demands.
Yeah.
There is always someone who will do it cheaper or more expensive. Find what works for you based on your capacity and your income, like you stated.
Yeah.
But don't do more than that, because at the end of the day, you don't have to please the crowd. You need to please yourself. Just do just the right amount and make that money. Because sometimes what happens is, right, that if people deem you as ungroomed, or you know, where you look bad in certain shoots, for example, they may not take you for the next gig, right? Because you're unpresentable. So it's kind of like based on the industry you're in. I hope I'm making sense and I'm answering your question.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I do hear you. I want to talk about this whole freelance gig. The gig economy, right? Because when you're making money on the side, there's always this feeling that, like, look, I might be making 10K this month. I don't know if I'm going to make 10K next month. I might make like 1K next month, right? And then in December, suddenly I'm making 50K. And that becomes hard for people to plan. Do you ever work with clients who have that kind of up and down in their income?
Yes, I do a lot. And something what I tell them is, you have to first understand, okay, if a situation comes where you make zero money or very little money that month, how much do you need in that month or any other month to actually just get through?
By.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that is something that you have to always save up. And compared to someone who has a steady job, you would actually need a bigger, something I call like a rainy fund or an emergency pot. You just need a bigger, size of it, like bigger pot.
But to go back to that, Raji, I think for the longest time, and again, even I did not actually know these numbers until a couple of months ago. I don't know actually what my life costs. A lot of people have not done that exercise, which is, what is my rent, what is my diva bill, what is my do bill, what is my, what does my car cost me, how much am I paying for, say, cleaning services. And that's what I find really interesting about your breakdowns, right? Because it makes me think, oh, wow, actually my regular life costs me this much. Do I really need to be spending that much on a cleaning service, or do I really need to be spending that much on my rent? Maybe I could cut down a little bit on that.
And this is something, like, once you do that exercise, you actually don't need anyone's help.
Yeah.
Like, most of my clients whom I work with, I don't tell them what to do. Once they do that exercise, I ask them, what do they want to do? And they themselves come up with a
With the
solution.
answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They themselves, once you do that by yourself, just take an hour a week, maybe on that weekend.
You don't even need an hour a week. You just need 1 hour full stop, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Just sit there and just go through what your expenses are like.
Yeah, I love that.
And then you will immediately know your voice, your that feeling,
Your
whatever,
gut will speak to you.
definitely speak to you.
So I want to pause there, because I think to anyone who's watched the video so far, if there's one thing you can do for yourself this week, like have a date with yourself. Make it a date night.
Money date.
Take yourself out to coffee. Sit down and write those numbers down. What is your rent? What is your electricity? What are your monthly outgoings? What are you paying for? Maybe you're sending money home, or maybe there are people who are dependent on you. What are those amounts? When you put that Excel sheet down, trust me, life will not look the same.
Exactly. And I do have a money tracker, a free money tracker.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's
it's a
amazing.
spreadsheet.
Great.
The spreadsheet. All you have to do is just put in those numbers, just what Malavika said, and it will exactly show you what your spendings are like.
Fantastic. We're going to come back and chat a little bit more about these different household incomes and how they're spent with Raji and Naomi. So stick around. Welcome back to this interesting conversation about money and about women and how we deal with it, how we earn it, how we negotiate for it. Raji, I want to talk to you about some of the case studies that you have up on your Instagram profile, which is Finance with Raji, right? You talk to people who are making, say, 6,000 dirhams a month, people who are making 14,000 dirhams a month, people who are making 30,000 dirhams a month as their household incomes. And then you help them kind of break down what percentage of it should be saved, what they should be spending. So what's your, is there a map, is there a formula that we, like a quick application formula that we can try?
Yes, I would say even if you make 50,000 or 5,000, the basic thing, if you have never budgeted yourself, then I would say start off by thinking it into like 3 buckets. So the first bucket is where you're looking at your needs. So these are like your absolute needs, like the ones like you said, like rent or mortgage or your diva bills, or like if something, let's say something as worse as you lose your job happens and you have no income coming in at all, how much do you need per month to just go through,
get by?
And what is that bare minimum?
Okay,
so that is what your needs are basically.
So your needs, how much of your needs should you have set aside? How many months?
That would be a 50, I would say if you can spend within 50% of your income. So if it's 5,000, if you can stick to 2,500 as just for your needs, then that is that first bucket. So 50% in that, and then the next 30% is what the other bucket, which is the wants. So these are where if you want to go and treat yourself to a spa or to the salon or anything, or restaurant, taking out, eating out and all of that, then that is what your wants are. So that is what, if you can just stick to 30%, then that is a good way. And then what you're left with is 20%. So that is where a 20% you can keep aside for your savings and save towards, maybe your short-term goals or any longer-term goals that you have. If you can get into that habit.
And savings does not mean like take that money and put it in the bank. It means like invest it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So
but that is
for someone
again,
who's
step-by-step
investing,
process.
say as little as 500 dirhams a month or 400 dirhams a month, what's a good place to put it? Because it feels like I can't do cryptocurrency and all that with 400 dirhams a month, right? So where do I put this money?
If you, I mean, before even getting to investing, I just want to caveat it by saying that, a lot of people make mistakes is that they just start investing without even having liquid cash with them. So before you even start investing, make sure you have a rainy day fund, like an emergency pot. And once that is set up, then go into investing, because that is something you want to do for your longer term, for the future you. And just to answer your question, if, instead of going into something like as high risk as cryptocurrency or picking individual stocks, the simplest thing you can do is actually invest into funds. Because that's a lot more passive. And very simple to start off with are something called index funds. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty,
But you can get more information on my Instagram
but
handle.
that is something you can really start off with.
Great. I want to wrap the show by asking you guys about side hustles, because both of your influencing work and your Instagram handle started off as a side hustle, and now it's your main gig. You're on your way to making this your main gig. I think a lot of people in jobs no matter how well you do at work, right? Your salary will grow by 10%, 15%, 20% year on year. But having a side hustle means that you can make a lot more money. Do you recommend it? Obviously you do, because it's now your main gig. But how do you do it, and how do you make sure you do it without threatening your main gig? Like, how do you build a raft without digging a hole in the boat?
I would say, I'll just give an example. Look at this table. Okay, if this table at the moment has 4 legs. If there was just one leg, and if that broke, this table would just fall down now, right? And that's exactly what your main job is. If you only just have that, and if that stops, you're done. There's no more income coming in. But you need to think of actually building these 4 legs. So that even if something goes wrong with one leg, you will be wobbly, but you still can just get through, and you will still be okay. So that's what I would.
But there are a lot of considerations, right, Naomi? We're talking about this. It's not as, jobs in the UAE are all consuming. They are all consuming. So what are some of the key questions that you have to ask before you take on a side hustle?
I think side hustles are important because I think you need to keep your sanity and not just have a full-time job, because side hustles mainly are related to your passion, and that's how mine started. So I think it fuels you, at least this is my opinion, it fuels you to kind of do your job better as well.
Yeah.
And I think you should not look at side hustle as, oh, I want to make extra money. You should kind of try to find a side hustle that you're passionate about, and that will automatically make you money, and that it could potentially also be your full-time thing. I remember in 2017, it was very difficult for me because I used to travel to Abu Dhabi every single day in my consultancy role. And I would come back by around 7ish, and then after that I would have events or shoots. And for some reason I shot myself in the foot, and I also did my master's in engineering at that time. So I was doing everything
Wow.
together. Oh God, it was terrible, and I had my personal life. But for some reason, that passion and the side hustle that I had, it kind of kept me going because there was something I could look forward to.
Yeah.
So I do think a side hustle is good, but you shouldn't do it to an extent where you would burn out and you would fail in both. So I think you need to see how much your current full-time job demands from you, and then accordingly you can plan it and set aside, and then you can do your side hustle, or you can do your side hustle over the weekends.
Agreed. So time, money, energy, what is this going to cost you? If you can get a side hustle, then get a side hustle and take advice from two people who have made that their main gig. Thank you guys so much for being part of this conversation. I know that we've opened the eyes of many people to what they really should be doing with their money and with their time. So thank you. Thank you guys for watching More Bang for Her Buck. If you like the conversations we're having, do like, share, subscribe, comment, tell a friend, spread the word, because we need all the support we can get. This is a show that's proudly produced by Brown on the Outside.